$80 billion. That is the number being thrown around for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. $80 billion in projected global economic impact. 824,000 jobs. Cities expecting hundreds of millions in tourism revenue. A tournament so large, so unprecedented, that FIFA's own president called it the greatest event that mankind has ever seen or will ever see. But here is the question nobody is asking loudly enough. Who actually keeps the money? This is the Business Blackbook, where billion-dollar empires are built and collapse. Welcome back! Today, we are opening a chapter that sits right at the intersection of sport, economics, and power. We are going to decode something that on the surface looks like a party, but underneath is one of the most fascinating financial structures in the world. The 2026 FIFA World Cup is not just a tournament, it is a machine. A machine that generates billions, distributes some of it, and quietly keeps most of it. And they're the cities and governments that host it. They get the crowd, the cameras, the glory, and sometimes the bill. So let us break this down completely, logically, layer by layer. Let us start with the basics. What is actually happening in 2026? For the first time in history, a World Cup will be hosted across 3 countries simultaneously: the United States, Canada, and Mexico. 48 teams will compete. 104 matches will be played. 16 cities across North America will host games. 11 of them are in the United States alone. The scale of this tournament is genuinely unprecedented. Previous World Cups had 32 teams and 64 matches. This one has expanded by 50%. More teams, more matches, more viewers, more money. FIFA expects around 6 billion people to watch some part of this tournament. To put that in perspective, that is the equivalent viewership of 100 Super Bowls. And the financial numbers match the scale. FIFA's total revenue for the 4-year cycle ending with this World Cup is projected to hit $11 billion. The 2022 Qatar World Cup generated $7 billion for its cycle. The 2018 Russia cycle generated around $6.4 billion. So we are looking at a 56% jump from Qatar to 2026. This is not incremental growth. This is a step change in the commercial power of football. Now, where does this $11 billion come from? The biggest single piece is broadcasting rights. Television networks, streaming platforms, and digital rights holders around the world pay FIFA for the right to show the matches. In 2006, when Germany hosted, broadcasting revenue was around $1.3 billion. For 2026, it is projected to reach $4.3 billion. In just 20 years, broadcasting revenue has more than tripled. This is because football's global footprint keeps expanding. More countries are interested. More platforms are competing. More screens exist. The second pillar is sponsorship and marketing. Global brands like Adidas, Coca-Cola, and major technology companies pay between $100 and $150 million per 4-year cycle just to be called an official FIFA partner. That gives them category exclusivity, meaning no rival brand in their space can advertise at a World Cup. For 2026, total marketing and sponsorship revenue is expected to reach around $2.7 billion. The third pillar is hospitality and ticket sales. This one is projected to generate $3 billion or more. And this is the number that affects fans directly because ticket prices have been a major controversy heading into this tournament. 70 members of the United States Congress actually wrote a formal letter to FIFA President Gianni Infantino demanding that ticket prices be reduced. Some premium match tickets are selling for over $2,000 on secondary markets. Even the so-called entry-level tickets start at $60 and quickly climb from there. FIFA received 500 million ticket applications in the initial window alone, which tells you something about the demand. But it also tells you something about how FIFA used that demand to set prices. So, FIFA is looking at 11 billion in revenue, and the cities hosting the matches. What do they get? This is where the picture becomes far more complicated. The economic projections for host cities are genuinely impressive on paper. The FIFA and World Trade Organization joint study projects that the tournament will contribute $40.9 billion to global GDP. The United States alone is expected to see $17.2 billion in GDP boost. Cities like Dallas are projecting economic impacts of $1.5 to $2.1 billion. Kansas City expects a $653 million impact. Seattle projects $929 million. Atlanta expects over $1 billion from its 8 matches alone. These are large numbers, and some of this money is real. Tourists do come. Hotels do fill up. Restaurants do get crowded. Workers in hospitality and transport do get more hours. That is genuine economic activity. But here is the critical distinction that most people miss completely. The economic activity that happens in a city during the World Cup and the money that FIFA keeps from the World Cup are two entirely different pools of money. FIFA keeps ticket revenue. FIFA keeps broadcasting revenue. FIFA keeps sponsorship revenue. FIFA keeps hospitality sales. FIFA keeps naming rights and licensing. The host cities get the spending of the tourists who show up. Think about what that means. If 100,000 tourists come to Dallas for World Cup matches and each spends $2,000 on hotels, food, transport, and entertainment, that is $200 million flowing into the Dallas economy from those tourists. That is real. That is good. But the ticket revenue from those same matches, the broadcasting rights, the corporate hospitality packages, all of that goes to FIFA, not Dallas, not the United States, not the local organizing committee. And here is where it gets even more interesting, because the cities that host the matches are not just passively receiving tourists, they are actively spending money to make the event possible. Every host city must cover security costs. They must cover policing, emergency services, transportation planning, stadium operational logistics, fan zones, infrastructure upgrades. These are not small numbers. An independent analysis of the 11 U.S. host cities found they collectively face a shortfall of at least $250 million. Because FIFA's deal with host cities is highly restrictive, limiting the revenues those cities can generate from the event while still requiring them to shoulder the costs. The U.S. federal government did allocate $625 million for World Cup-related security costs. That sounds helpful, but that money goes to federal security requirements, not to help local host committees balance their books. Let us look at a specific case because it illustrates the tension perfectly. The Bay Area is hosting 6 World Cup matches at Levi's Stadium. When the bid was secured, it was celebrated as a major win. The projections showed $400 to $600 million in economic impact for the region. But as 2026 drew closer, the financial reality became sharper. Hosting costs at the stadium alone were projected at $50 million. FIFA contributed $13 million. That left a $37 million gap. In the state of California, facing a $12 billion local deficit, pulled its funding entirely. California's governor cited fiscal pressure from national budget instability. So, one of the most valuable football franchises in the world, the San Francisco 49ers, who own Levi's Stadium, found themselves potentially staring at tens of millions in costs just to host the games. Not to build anything new, just to host. Separately, the city of Foxborough in Massachusetts, which hosts matches at Gillette Stadium, threatened to withhold the event license entirely. Their argument was straightforward. Why should local taxpayers pay millions for security and operations when FIFA and the stadium operator keep all the core revenues? A town spokesperson made the position very clear. The World Cup security and public safety costs should not be borne by town taxpayers. Those costs should fall on the organizers and entities directly benefiting from the event. Chicago, the third largest city in the United States, decided not to host any World Cup matches at all. City officials concluded that hosting would leave the city in debt. Instead, Chicago launched its own campaign to attract visitors during the tournament, hoping to capture tourism spending without absorbing the hosting costs. Kansas City is forgoing over $11 million in state and local sales tax revenue because FIFA requires that ticket sales at World Cup matches be tax exempt. Every city hosting games has had to grant this exemption. The money that would normally flow into public education and healthcare does not get collected. So the picture emerging is this. FIFA runs the tournament. FIFA keeps the core revenues, and host cities bear costs that sometimes exceed what they can recover, even accounting for the tourism boost. Now, is this a conspiracy? Is FIFA some kind of villain in this story? That framing would miss the point entirely. FIFA is a non-profit organization. Its revenues are distributed to its 211 member football associations around the world. Every member federation receives at least $2 million a year from FIFA's development fund. The total prize money for the 2026 World Cup is $896 million. The winning nation takes home $50 million. Even teams that exit in the group stage receive compensation. And FIFA has committed $2.25 billion to support member federations over the 4-year cycle. So the money does flow back into football globally. A federation in a small developing nation gets FIFA funding that helps build youth academies, train coaches, develop infrastructure. The system does redistribute wealth into the sport globally, but the structural tension remains. FIFA, a nonprofit registered in Switzerland, operates in a way that lets it extract maximum commercial value from events hosted in cities and countries that absorb significant costs. FIFA's commercial revenues are essentially tax-free in many jurisdictions because of negotiated exemptions. The money that people spend on tickets, which would normally generate sales tax for local governments, flows to FIFA without that local tax component. One professor of economics at the College of the Holy Cross put it bluntly. There is no reason that a $5 billion nonprofit from Switzerland should be receiving handouts from Massachusetts taxpayers. And this brings us to the deeper question about the projections themselves. Are those economic impact numbers real? Here's what we know from studying the history of World Cups and other mega events. Pre-event economic projections are almost universally higher than actual outcomes. South Africa projected 450,000 international visitors for the 2010 World Cup. Only around 300,000 showed up. Brazil spent $11.6 billion hosting in 2014 and experienced negative GDP growth from 2014 to 2017. The country's most expensive World Cup stadium, which cost nearly $1 billion to build in Brasilia, is now primarily used as a bus depot. Brazil's National Court of Auditors concluded that the public spending on the World Cup was enough to have paid the entire country's annual social welfare bill twice over. The 2026 hosts are in a fundamentally different position because they are not building new stadiums. This is a critical advantage. The United States is using existing world-class venues. SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. No new construction means no white elephant risk. This is genuinely smart, and it changes the calculus significantly compared to South Africa or Brazil. But even with existing infrastructure, economists who study mega events will tell you to look carefully at a concept called displacement. When a major event fills a city, it simultaneously pushes away regular tourists and business travelers who would have come anyway. Hotels charge 90% above normal rates near match days. But those premium prices might also mean that normal travelers who would have spent money in the city simply do not come that week. The net new spending is therefore smaller than the gross spending figure suggests. Oxford Economics projects hotel room revenues will increase 7 to 25% in June 2026 in host cities. That is real upside. But the tourists who get priced out, the business conferences that move their date, those represent spending that does not happen. The net figure is always smaller than the headline number. There is also the question of who within the city actually captures the economic benefit. Hotel revenues surge, but those hotels are often owned by national or international chains. The money flows upward, not into local small businesses. Restaurant owners near stadiums do well, but residents further from the event zone may see their city more expensive and more crowded without corresponding benefits. Wages for service workers may increase slightly during the event, but by nowhere near the same percentage that hotel room rates increase. The returns to capital, meaning hotel owners, venue operators, large sponsors, tend to exceed the returns to labor. This has been a consistent finding across multiple World Cups. The economic activity during the event is real, but it concentrates at the top of the economic chain, not at the base. Now let us address the common misconceptions head on, because there are several things people say about World Cup economics that are either partially true or simply wrong. The first misconception is that the host country gets rich from hosting the World Cup. This is not accurate. The host country gets economic activity. Tourists spend money. Jobs are created temporarily. Some infrastructure gets built. But the primary revenue streams, broadcasting, ticketing, sponsorship, go to FIFA. Countries that build new stadiums often end up with facilities that cost more to maintain than they generate. Countries that host do not receive a share of FIFA's 11 billion in revenue. The second misconception is that bigger projections mean bigger reality. Almost every World Cup has produced actual economic outcomes below the pre-event projections. Pre-event studies are often commissioned by organizations with a stake in making the event happen. They use multiplier models that assume spending flows through the local economy multiple times. But those multipliers assume the spending is genuinely new, which is not always the case if it displaces regular tourism. The third misconception is that the 2026 World Cup will be different because of the expanded format. The expanded format with 48 teams is genuinely new and genuinely creates more commercial value. But more matches also mean more operational costs for host cities, more security, more transport, more city staff, more event days to manage. The upside is real, but the costs also scale. The fourth misconception is that FIFA being a nonprofit means the money is used for good. FIFA is technically a nonprofit, and it does reinvest substantial sums into football development globally. But nonprofit status in this context means the organization does not pay dividends to shareholders. It does not mean it operates without significant salaries, administrative costs, and political complexity. FIFA has had well-documented governance scandals in its past, and the nonprofit structure also allows it to negotiate tax exemptions in host countries that would not be available to a regular commercial entity. So what should a financially aware person actually understand from all of this? Let us put this together clearly. The 2026 World Cup will generate real economic activity. Hundreds of millions of dollars in genuine tourist spending will flow through host cities. Some of that money will reach hotels, restaurants, transport operators, and local businesses. Some jobs will be created, most of them temporary. Some infrastructure investments will leave lasting benefits. The Bay Area, Dallas, New York, Atlanta, and other host markets will see genuine short-term economic boosts. The tournament is also structured more intelligently than previous World Cups. Using existing stadiums rather than building new ones eliminates the biggest historical trap. Brazil, South Africa, Russia, they built. The 2026 hosts largely did not. That is a structural advantage. But the structural tension in the model remains. FIFA captures the commercial core. Host cities capture the economic spillover and the costs of actually delivering the event. Security, operations, infrastructure modification, tax exemptions fall on local governments and taxpayers. The cities that go in with clear eyes, conservative projections, and controlled spending will likely come out ahead. The cities that overbid, overspend, and overpromise may find themselves in a position where the economic activity flowed through their streets. But the net fiscal benefit was smaller than the headlines suggested. The smartest financial move any host city can make is to treat the World Cup like a very large, very well-attended conference. The visitors come, they spend, the city benefits. But the city does not confuse that benefit with the billions that FIFA books as revenue. Those are two different financial stories happening simultaneously in the same stadium. For individual people, whether you are a fan, a small business owner, an investor, or simply a curious observer, the lesson here is about how economic narratives get built around major events. The numbers are real. 40 billion in global GDP impact is not a fiction. 1.2 million international visitors to U.S. host cities is a genuine projection with serious research behind it. But every large number needs to be interrogated. Who counts it? Who commissioned the study? What does it include? What does it leave out? What is gross and what is net? What is projected and what is actual? The ability to ask those questions is what separates someone who reads economic headlines from someone who understands economic reality. The 2026 World Cup will be extraordinary as a sporting event. It will be commercially significant as a media and sponsorship vehicle. And it will be instructive once again as a case study in how global institutions organize massive financial structures around events that feel like celebrations but function as industries. Watch the matches, enjoy the tournament, but watch where the money flows, because that is where the real game is being played. And with that, the Black Book closes. Subscribe. And we will open the next page soon.